Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another session of the Let's Talk Show by Interlingua. As usual, I am your host, Mike Ruiz, and today we are going to talk about a very serious matter, but we're going to approach it in a light manner. Sickness, diseases. Our guests this evening are going to tell us different experiences they have with different kinds of diseases. And since you guys are watching, first I will ask you, how will you approach your loved ones when talking about a serious disease like COVID making his triumphant return to the Let's Talk Show? Let's bring out Jupe. Hey, Jupe.
Hi, thank you for having me, Mike.
No, thank you for participating and for taking the time for being with us again. You experienced some, may I call it also interesting? Of course, it was serious, but I think it was a very interesting phenomena. How the world was changing when the COVID pandemic started.
Right.
Because as I understand, you had to leave the country, go all the way to Europe, and you saw some several changes. Can you tell
Mhm.
me, what did you experience during that transition?
Right. Sure. Okay. The background story is this. In 2020, early 2020, my mother was very sick. It turned out she had cancer, and by the time it was May, she only had a few weeks left. It went extremely fast. Now, so I had to leave in May, and I flew from the airport here in Mexico City to Schiphol, the airport in Amsterdam. Here in Mexico City, there was almost nobody in the airport. It was completely empty. All the stores were closed. No, the curtains were closed. Iron curtains were closed. Uh, when I got to the gate, there was space for like 5 planes that could leave. Normally, there are like lots of different planes leaving that terminal, and now there was only one. It was our plane, and there were very few passengers. Nobody was traveling. On the plane, there were so few travelers that there were about one person for every 3 seats. So you had space on both sides. Everybody was sitting with a lot of space because nobody wanted to travel. It was dangerous because of COVID. Normally, if you fly to Europe, it's an 11-hour flight, by the way. If you fly to Europe, you get like dinner and you get breakfast and snacks. Now you got nothing. You got a plastic bag with your food in it, and that's it. See you in 11 hours. Okay?
Wow.
It was very strange. Very, very strange. So I get to Holland. Stores are closed. There are no trains. Everybody is wearing face masks. Very, very few people on the airport. They checked my COVID papers. No, there were no COVID papers at that time. Yes, there was a test. There was a test. I think there was a test. So they checked if I had taken the test, and then that was it, and I left. Okay, there were no vaccinations yet. And somebody picked me up and took me away. Okay, and very, very quiet. No cars on the highway. Nobody was going to offices. Everybody was working from home. Okay, that was May 2020.
And tell me, when you returned to Mexico, uh, were the were the measures of going back and the way they treated people in the airport, were they the same, or they were more like strict?
No, on the contrary. In Holland, you had to have a good reason to visit, otherwise you weren't
Yeah.
welcome. Mexico never changed the border. Everybody could always enter. They never asked for vaccination papers.
You returned to Mexico City.
Mm-hmm.
What measures did you take in your personal life and at your own home due to the fact that you're a family man?
Okay. As you mentioned before, Mike, in March 2020, the world closed, right? Lockdown, right? Schools closed, stores closed, everything closed. Okay. So fortunately, I can work from home. Okay. I am sitting in my office right now, and I just work from home. So for me, it's really not a problem. And obviously, the rest of the family is also here at home. We had fewer exposure to other places. No, it's like I don't think they ever closed the subway, for example. But since my son, who's going to the university to UNAM, had classes from home, he didn't have to take the subway to go to school, no, to go to the university. So we at that time we never had a problem. Actually, I finally got COVID a few months ago.
I find your case so ironic because I mean you went to another continent, you went back, you guys were in lockdown, you live with people,
Mhm.
and you didn't have COVID until a couple of weeks back, maybe last month, or I can't
In
remember the
June,
exact date.
June this year, yeah, 3 months ago.
Ah, June. You had it in June. So, wow. Could you tell me your experience? I mean, how did you feel? How were you treated? How was that experience for you?
It was very easy. It was very light. I had a cough and I thought it was an infection. So I went to the doctor and he said, you're a bit swollen. It'll be okay. But just in case on Tuesday, take a COVID test. And so he gave me some medication, not antibiotics, some light medication for the symptoms. And on Tuesday, Tuesday, I couldn't smell anything anymore. I couldn't smell the soap. I couldn't smell deodorant. I was like, that's weird. And so I said, I have to take that test. And of course, I took the
Oh
test.
man.
It was positive. So as I said, I was working from home already. So fortunately, we live in a house and we have a room a guest room, no, where people can stay, like family members when they come over or friends. So I locked myself into the guest room basically, and that was it. I mean, it's like for me, it was not a problem at all. Um, when I got COVID, I went to the doctor and he
Yes.
told me to take a test on Tuesday. It was probably nothing but just take a test and see if it's COVID. And of course it was. No, I took the test and it was positive. Had I lived in Holland, in the Netherlands, I would have taken a self-test here at home. In 2021, the government in Holland sent all the people, every family member of every family in the whole country, 2 self-tests. So they are little tests, like like women do pregnancy tests with urine. No, these that you do in your own home, these self-tests were with I don't know, a swab that you put in your nose and like all the way in, and then take it out and you put it in a thingy, and it tells you if you have COVID or not, right? And everybody in the whole country got 2 of those. But here in Mexico, we never got these. So we have to go out and go to a doctor or go to a clinic or a test center. In the beginning, there were only official test centers. Stand in line with all the other people, and some of them will actually have COVID even if you don't. So you might actually get infected standing in line to be tested. My question is, I don't understand why in Mexico we never had the self-tests. I don't think they were ever accepted by the government, and they were never sold. The last time I was in Holland, because I have been going once a year to be with my father, who is now alone. So this year I went, and then at the pharmacy, you can buy these little boxes, and they're self-tests, and they're ridiculously cheap. It's like buying chewing gum. It's like next to the checkout counter. They're there, a box full of them, and you just take a couple. And they're so common.
Did things go back to normal fast in Holland, or they were the same as here?
It was very different. In the beginning, there were an incredible amount of restrictions. Incredible. Now, there are no restrictions whatsoever. If you go to Holland now, nobody wears face masks. No. Not in the trains, not in the buses, not in the streets, not in the stores. Nobody wears face masks. Right now, it's as if Corona never happened.
Okay.
Right now. But since the winter is coming, and the winter it gets very cold. It's the flu season, so it might actually go up again. The numbers might go up again. However, there was something in the middle. So first there was a tremendous amount of restrictions. Everything was closed, like hotels, restaurants, and hotels were open. Limited. Restaurants were closed, bars were closed, all the areas where people were together were closed. Okay, and sports events were closed. There were no sports events with public. Okay, it was you could see your team on TV, but there was nobody in the stadium. Okay, many people in 2021 got tremendously upset about the restrictions. They said these restrictions are not necessary. Just like in the States, there were people saying COVID doesn't exist. Okay, just like in the States, and a lot of people protests. They went into the streets to protest against the government, obviously without face masks, just yelling and screaming and throwing stones at the police, just absolutely ridiculous in my humble opinion, against the closing of bars and restaurants because they wanted to party again after like a year. So the restrictions were like the options of life in public were so restricted that some people got upset and they started with violent protests. Then little by little, the government had to open up the opportunities for the people. For example, in 2021, they opened the terraces. You could drink a cup of coffee or drink a beer on a terrace, but not inside the bar. Because inside the bar, the people were together, and outside,
yeah.
So that's the long answer to your question. It's like, in the beginning, the restrictions were tremendous. Then afterwards, everything opened up. And now it's like when we are recording this, October 2021, right? 22, October 2022, is like here in Mexico City, people are still wearing face masks, okay? But many other places, I think I can say most other places in the country, people don't wear face masks anymore or only in certain situations, okay?
Yep.
Mexico City, people still wear a lot of face masks. The subway is like, and it might stay like that for a long time, and it's a good thing, I think. people protect themselves.
Yeah. Well, Jupe, thank you so much for sharing all of this information. For all of our viewers, thank you for sticking around. Stick around a little while longer because we have tons of more information and we have another guest. Jupe, in your case, thank you so much once again and have
Thank
a good
you.
evening.
You too. Bye.
And for the second part of tonight's show, coming back to the Let's Talk show, here it is. Mari Paz. Hello.
Hi.
Hi, welcome back, dear. How are you?
Fine, thank you. It's always nice to be here. Feels like home.
Oh, that's so sweet. That's so sweet. Thank you so much for saying that. That's the intention, practically, to make every guest feel at home and to make all of our viewers feel entertained. My dear, tonight's topic, it's at first glance it sounds pretty serious. We talked about health, we talk about sickness, we talk about how the world has changed thanks to the COVID pandemic. But now it's your turn to share us a little bit about your testimony by living your life with Behçet's syndrome. All right. Alrighty. Tell me, my dear, who better than you to tell us what that condition is all about? What is it about?
Okay. The best way to understand it, I think, is I think all of us have seen Doctor House, right? When someone has something super strange, and then uh, Doctor House goes there and says, "Oh, it might be lupus." No, it's never lupus. Well, it's something
It's
like
not
that.
lupus.
It's very strange. That type of disease, and it's an autoimmune disease, so it means it falls in the same category. So it's also about your own immune system attacking your body at random. We don't really know the patterns. So we know that it can be it has some emotional triggers, or some people also control it with the food. But that's basically what it is, like your body attacking your body just because. I think I got lucky in that autoimmune lottery, because I know other people who have something way more serious than I do. Also, autoimmune disorders, like a friend also has lupus, or a friend has Crohn disease. They are very,
Wow.
very exhausting. Or there's another one. Another friend has something on her back that basically attacks like her spinal cord, or like, and my mom had something weirder even, um something very sci-fi. When she was young, she she couldn't really swallow her food,
Uh
and
huh.
and, and then she became very weak, very weak. She couldn't do anything, she couldn't speak, and the doctors were baffled, and they said, we don't know what you have, you know until someone in the US had myasthenia, and that is what my mom has, myasthenia gravis. Also,
Myasthenia gravis. Is
also
that also an autoimmune disease?
yes. So there are some new research that they're
Yeah.
doing right now, and they say that all these autoimmune disorders might be genetic, or if your family has it, you might have something similar. You might develop some symptoms, something related, but they are not sure. No one knows again. And it's also called the silk route disease, because it happens in it's more common in very few countries in in that route, exactly, like Japan, Turkey, and Spain. Many people in Spain really helped me understand what the disease was and what I could go through, and they were a huge guide when I didn't know anything about it and there was not much information around. First
Oh,
days of the internet.
oh yeah, back in the day, simpler days, simpler days. So, uh, you said that in your mother's case, she checked herself and they told her, you don't know what you have. But what was it like for you with
it was
your Behçets?
it was the same thing.
Oh, really?
Um,
How did it happen? I mean, were you a kid or were you a teenager? What started to happen that you were like, oh my God, I'm not okay? What is happening to me?
when I was a kid, I always seemed to get very sick. Like my tonsils were always sick, and
Um,
I had fevers, and they thought it was a simple infection. So, but I had sores in my mouth, which is a big sign that you might have Behçets, right? But the doctors thought it was the fever, so I got treated with penicillin, the usual for strep infection in your throat. Um, but when I turned 15, it got very ugly. I was not getting better, and I was admitted into a hospital. And it was at first I felt very bad, and I was like, "Am I getting out of here, or what's going on?" But then, like a doctor came and said, "You know what? It's not like a viral infection." And then another doctor came by and, "We feel that this is not a bacteria." And I was like, "Okay, so tell me what it is." Or, it's not a fungal infection. We are sure about it. We tested you. And I was just tired, kind of, but I got better. I was resting, I was eating very well, and I was in this area of infectious diseases, and I was completely alone by myself because they thought I had something really bad. It must be something
oh,
weird and bad. Um, but my family visited. It was okay. My friends sent me things, and after a while, the doctor said, "Okay, we think we know what you have." And then he explained, this immune system, like these soldiers in your body that are supposed to protect you, they're attacking your body. We don't know why. And it made sense from there. um uh, my whole life started making sense. I was like, so that's the reason I got sick before. Oh.
what is the current available information about the Behçet's syndrome?
I think it's about the same, and it took them 10 days. It wasn't very long. It was fine. What I read when I was in the COVID pandemic, trying to get more information, um, as an interpreter and all that, I learned that when they gave a treatment to kids, or when they got COVID, they sometimes developed Hashimoto's. Hashimoto's is also an autoimmune disorder, and
Yeah.
they're giving them the same. Basically, the treatment is not developing. There's not much research because very few people have it, really. um, so unfortunately, yes, these kids started having like bruising in their hands and feet, I think, and they discovered they had developed Hashimoto. I don't know if there were too many cases,
Hmm.
but my friend who has lupus, unfortunately had to get a kidney transplant.
Oh
Um,
man.
because this thing, it can affect your bowel, it can affect like your blood flow, it can mess with your eyes, with it can just be swelling all over. But she's doing very well, and she's in the exact same medication I was 20 years ago. Nothing has changed.
So how do you treat yourself? What do you normally consume, or what do you normally do in order to keep your lifestyle, keep your health in a decent level?
Mm. Well, this I think this applies to everyone. We have to really observe our lifestyle, and we really have to know what we are doing, because I noticed this pattern that when I was very stressed out, I would have a flare. No, normally I'm doing really great, like I'm doing
Oh,
now. But when I was very stressed out, I would start feeling weak, or maybe my joints would hurt, or maybe I started feeling that some sores were coming out in my inside of my mouth. No,
uh-huh.
and that is the moment when I thought, well, I have to live the most relaxed life I can live. And I started doing exercise. I thought that in that way I could also like get it all out, and everything that could stop the swelling. So I take all the supplements I can, like I take a lot of curcumin, ginger, and I'm starting with the CBD. It's doing great. And I take ferments because I also started having some issues with my bowel as I grew older,
Hmm.
and it was the same. No, I it was part of the same condition. So you have to have an understanding of what stress does to your body, even if you don't have a condition. I feel.
Okay. You have you have managed to live a normal life. Like for example, this condition hasn't stopped you to live your life in a regular basis in a normal way.
Oh, it depends on when it's very bad. I just feel exhausted, and I can't do anything. It can be exhausting if you've been feeling bad for a long time, and I think it's important to talk about it more, because some people are sick with this type of thing that it's invisible, and when you tell
Hmm.
them, oh, I was feeling very sick, they may not believe you, because it's something you can see, something that you notice at first
Yeah.
glance. You would think, oh, but you look fine. No, it's the most common thing. Yes, but I know if I sometimes do many things and get very stressed out, or I don't sleep well, things like that, or like I'm not in control of my health, I know that can mess me up.
Of
Um,
course.
I have to take more care of myself, I think. Um, but I try to live as normal as I can.
Yeah, I can tell. I can tell. So, thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing everything that you did today with us. And I hope it was helpful for some of your viewers. I mean, the odds are pretty, how can I say? It's very unlikely that maybe some of our viewers encounter someone with that disease, but it's possible. So I hope this information has been useful for them, and why not? Interesting as well. That's what this show is for. Maripas, thank you so much for again taking your time for being here. It was so nice to see you. It was so nice to chat with you as usual. Looking forward to have you soon. in a nearby future.
All right. Thank you, Mike. Take care.
You take care. You too. And for all our viewers, that's it for tonight. Thanks for tuning in. This was I Am Thick by the Let's Talk Show. I am Mike Ruiz as usual. Eric Rios was in the controls. Goodbye and good night. Bye.